Good morning, Sun City residents. This is Rusty Bradshaw, and I'm here to give you a brief report on the Recreation Centers of Sun City annual membership meeting that took place last night. Between the people who were there actually in person and the proxies, there were 1,785 people in attendance, and the quorum requirement was 500. And I can tell you by the fact that they'd set up 800 chairs in the main part of the auditorium at Sundial Center and ended up opening both wings and adding seats, there were at least 900 people actually there in person. So nearly double the amount needed for a quorum. Now, the meeting started with RCSC Board President Tom Foster explaining that the decision by the board to pull the 21 motions that were put forward by members was driven by legal advice from their corporate attorney. Part of the concerns about the motions were that some were in conflict with other motions, some made changes to board policies, which is not allowed as part of the procedure. And so they took all of the motions and brought them to the board for further study. And those will be part of the ad hoc bylaws committee that is planned to be formed, in addition to a lot of other motions or a lot of other bylaws that will be studied. And if anybody's interested in being on that committee, Mr. Foster asked that they email him, and you can find his email address on the RCSC website at www.suncityaz.org. Now, he also talked about the governing documents and how they define how this is done in terms of the annual membership meeting and member motions. And according to him, the documents declare that member motions made at an annual meeting are essentially just recommendations to the board. And he talked about how if the board did not follow its attorney's advice, it could open them up to allegations that they were breaching their fiduciary duty. He also talked about legal bills or legislative bills being reviewed by numerous attorneys, but RCSC does not have those kind of resources in terms of the number of attorneys that review motions. And without the review of these motions, it could bring about unintended consequences, according to Mr. Foster. And again, he reviewed the ad hoc committees about what they will do once it's formed. They will look at all of the bylaws, including the motions that were to have been presented last night. This is expected to take 3 to 4 months. And he did mention that there was an expectation, although there was no time limit on how long this committee would serve, there was an expectation that they would have something to present to the board by its October meeting. The meeting then was opened up to residents to speak, and there were a mixture of people who supported the board in its actions and those who opposed the board in its actions regarding the annual meeting and other things ranging from the financial situation to the general manager. And the first speaker was Jean Totten, who talked about the petitions that she had gathered to request that the board terminate the general manager's employment. She had gathered more than 1,200 signatures on these petitions, and those were presented to the board. Resident John Fast had filed a lawsuit against the RCSC because they pulled all the motions for the annual meeting. And he said that the lawsuit against the board is basically about the right to vote by members. He claims there are contradictory statements in the bylaws regarding member votes, and that the bylaws are not necessarily the operating documents of the corporation. Mr. Fast also believes that this whole situation could have been resolved by discussion, which he tried to initiate with RCSC officials. Bill Pearson spoke about the origins of Sun City and said that when Sun City was formed, it was more about the community than the organization. But unfortunately, he believes that has devolved to a situation where the board believes it's in charge and the residents have no voice. Mr. Pearson also said the current bylaws are a mess, talking about how the original bylaws were less than 20 pages, then they became 24 pages, now they're 36 and more. The meeting was relatively civil. People obviously were upset and their emotions were expressed, but it wasn't the mess that it was 4 years ago when the board decided to bring on armed deputies from MCSO. It was very gratifying to see the amount of people there in person. So that was a success. It is nice to see that people are involved, even though it takes a situation like this to get people out. Hopefully that will change and people will get more and more involved. That, in a nutshell, is the annual meeting. The meeting was recorded, and you can see it on the RCSC YouTube channel. Go to the RCSC website at www.suncityaz.org and click on the YouTube button and you'll find the meeting. Give it probably about a day before it goes up. That seems to be the pattern. But if you want to see the entire meeting, it's on the YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.